Alright, howdy everybody, welcome back to Top Comics Pressing. In this video, I want to express my sincere gratitude to the community for welcoming me into the YouTube comicosphere. And if you didn't know, the start of November is the anniversary of Top Comics Pressing on YouTube. And so this is really close to about the second year anniversary of kicking off the Top Comics Pressing YouTube channel. And what I thought I would do for that is go all the way back to some of the original unboxings and videos where the pressing room looked a lot like this. It was pretty much just gray walls, devoid with kind of an intense echo in here because there was nothing really on the walls to mute it. And I've taken down all the comics that I've since, over the last 2 years, acquired to decorate the pressing space, and I just want to walk you through what all of them are as a way of expressing my gratitude for, you know, all the continued support, the subscribers, the likes, the comments, the thumbs up, you know, reaching out on Facebook or Instagram and all of the above. And so some of the, you'll realize really quick, I'm an eclectic collector, and not only that, these are really all going to be kind of modern books that have a wide variety of flair for me. And one of the first ones I wanted to showcase is the Silver Surfer limited series. This is from 1988, and it features this really, I think, epic story by Stan Lee. The art is by Mobius, and it's a really great 1-2-parter if you haven't picked it up. It's been reprinted multiple times, so you can find, you know, reprints usually are only a couple of bucks. The original series raw for mid-grade or you know, lower high-grade copies is also not very expensive, so you're probably looking at $10 to $15 for a decent copy of both of these. And this, you know, it was a struggle to find. I think I had multiple 9.4, 9.6s of this, and I ultimately took some of those and sent them to Crack, and eventually this 9.6 came back 9.8, and this one also was purchased as a 9.6 and cracked and obtained a 9.8, and so that was a little bit of a presser gratification, but I now have both issue 1 and 2 in 9.8 white pages for that limited mini-series, which is really awesome in my opinion. So next on up here is A Trip to a Galaxy Far, Far Away, and this is going to be Heir to the Empire #1. It is in a very not impressive 7.0 grade, so this book you can readily find in much, much higher grades. But this one I was able to bring with me to have Timothy Zahn sign at C2E2 in 2021, kind of when the pandemic was rolling around. And he was not doing a whole lot of remarks or anything like that for other people, but I was able to talk him into signing this, The Force is Strong, Timothy Zahn. And part of the reason I think that he agreed to do that for me is, you know, I was clearly not a dealer that had a stack of these, but I did have this really ratty-tatty paperback, which turned out was a first edition of Heir to the Empire. And it was the one that I had as a kid that I had read, you know, multiple times. And so this was a really great opportunity to meet the legend himself. And, you know, going back to the kind of renaissance of Star Wars in the early 1990s, I think Heir to the Empire really kicked it off quite strong. And that Thrawn trilogy is still enjoyable to me to this day. And so I like a lot of elements of that. Not only that, this cover I think knocks it out of the park. And so all in all, you know, that one's a keeper for quite some time. Next on up here is a stack of Batman comics. So kind of at the peak pandemic, CGC had a signing as the 3 Jokers were kicking off, and they had all 3 of the artists, the writer and the inker, so Jason Fabok, Brad Anderson, and Jeff Johns, all be able to do a joint signing. And this thing took forever for CGC to actually process. I think because Jason Fabok was like, or Jeff Johns, one of the 2 of them was like super overbooked scheduled or couldn't get down to Florida or whatever. But it was an insane, and this one I was really happy to come back. So this is the limited, I think 1 in 100 of the Batman 3 Jokers #1. Now a lot of people didn't like how this ended, and I thought it was just fine. I actually really enjoyed the art. The art is like knock it out of the park. It is like perfect panel to panel to panel, and there's so many Easter eggs and homages in this that I personally really enjoyed it. And I usually don't splurge on modern covers very much, and so the idea that I would spring for the 1 in 100 series of the entire run was pretty unusual. This one was the second print 1 in 50, and so I have both of those here. I have 9/8 of all 4 covers. The other 2 are kind of locked away. But again, I really enjoyed it. You know, Gaggy, the original kind of Joker henchman, got eaten by a laughing something, and I don't know. I just really enjoyed the whole thing. There's a great scene with Batman and you know, Dick Grayson about who's going to drive the Batmobile, or is it Jason Todd? It might be Jason Todd. It's been a while since I read it. But anyway, that one was pretty solid. Next on up here is a copy of Batman number 608. This is the second printing, kind of the epic Jim Lee cover that I think is now recognized as a modern classic. It's one of the rare instances where the second print is worth significantly more than the first print. It is not a 9.8 copy, but it is triply signed by Jim Lee, Jeff Loeb, and Scott Williams. And so again, you know, we have all of the creators and co-creators here on this one. And yeah, really just epic, true grail. And I really love being able to get the marker to match for everybody. And you notice from kind of a distance, you don't really see it. And so it's kind of muted into the background, which I think is important, that the signatures don't really destroy the aesthetic of the book. And so I think that one's true to it. Now, next on up here is a triple whammy of Batman, The Adventures. And so I'm a huge fan of the animated series from the early 90s. And of course, you couldn't kick it off without a 9.8 copy of issue number 1 of Batman the Animated Adventures, which kind of kicks off the animated series counterpart in the comic books. So I love that. Batman the Mask of the Phantasm is just such a great Batman movie. Even as a cartoon, I think it has lasting power. As an adult, there's just a lot of wrinkles to it. And the trade paperback here, I think, is really great. There are, I think, 2 covers of this, and so I'm still on a hunt for a 9.8 of the other one. But, you know, I just really love the Bruce Timm artwork and aesthetic in the entire Batman the Animated Series, and it's just such a great series. And then finally here, you know, I think the Mark Hamill Joker really makes the series. He's not the full center of it, which is another reason why I like the animated series. You know, it does a great job of doing service, kind of rewriting the backstory of Mr. Freeze. You know, the Two-Face saga is just incredible when, you know, Two-Face goes from Harvey Dent to becoming Two-Face. And, you know, there's a lot of really other great interactions with Catwoman and yeah, and Clayface. I mean, it's just, it goes on and on. But of course, Mark Hamill's The Joker is truly epic. And this cover here, which is the conclusion to the longest run of the comics, Batman Gotham Adventures, with Joker with that bomb over his head and the match right between the two of them kind of eliminated with their grins and grimaces and smiles. I just really love. And so being able to nail a 9.8 to that one was pretty awesome. All right, one final DC book here for those of you, don't worry, there is Marvel coming on up, but I missed out on the George Perez private signing because unfortunately he did pass away before he was able to get down to Florida to do some of the signings. And people had submitted the books, and I actually had the books I submitted returned to me from CGC without the autograph. And, you know, that's nobody's fault. It's just a tragic passing that, you know, it's part of life. But I did have to seek out then, I had sent the new Teen Titans #1 to have signed, and so I was able to pick this one up on the secondary market a little bit later. It's not a 9.8, but for being a doubly signed book, I got it for what I thought was a true steal, because it was a 9.6 and not a 9.8. And as somebody who regularly cracks 9.6s and makes them 9.8s, to me, there's not a significant difference in value just based on the number in the corner, as long as it's an attractive looking 9.6. So I was happy with that one. All right, moving on to some Marvels. There is a really awesome run of comic books in the 90s that I think truly encapsulates my childhood, and it's one with Venom and Carnage. And so I was really thrilled to be able to get Randy Emberlin to be able to do a sketch cover here of both Carnage and Venom on the same cover here. This is the Blackout 9/11 Marvel comic book Spider-Man tribute issue, and the back cover I think makes it a really great one to be able to do some original artwork on. And so Randy was able to do a quick sketch cover for me while we were at Rose City Comic Con in, I think, 2023. Yeah, so this one's a little over a year old at this point, and nothing really summarizes the early 90s Spider-Man like Venom and Carnage, and so that one's really awesome right there. Speaking of the symbiote, you know, like I said, I don't usually do modern variant covers, but this Symbiotes, where we have the whole brain, which instead of being a whole brand is actually little Spider-Man brains down here. I just really love. And, you know, this one I think was so detailed all the way down to those of us that remember the early 90s having the Spider-Man down here, having him, you know, face pump. And that was correctly attributed here to Mark Bagley on the Venom Lethal Protector #1. And so this one I was willing to make kind of an exception to my no modern variant cover rule for, partially because I don't know, it just makes me laugh. And honestly, I keep saying collect what you like, and if it makes me laugh, then it was worthwhile. All right, speaking of other things from the 90s that really take me back, here we have the first appearance of the Scarlet Spider. So this one's a 9.6. This book is a nightmare to press. And so if you hate me, you'd send me a stack of these asking me to press them all. What makes it an incredibly difficult book to press is the fact that it has multiple inserts in it, both at the centerfold and between the cover and the first wrap. And so because of that, the dimensions in the pressing is just ridiculous. And so finding high-grade raw copies of this thing is insane. If you want a 9.8, my advice is to buy a 9.8. In this case, I decided to cheap out and buy a pre-slabbed 9.6. It's a 9.6, of course, because it has a little bit of a staple tear back there. The staples are always a little bit recessed on these, so you can kind of see that right there where it has a little bit of the U-shape cut into it. But this cover stock also sucks, so it's a spine that splits with like minimal pressure. So, I mean, again, this book is just atrocious to press. It's on my I hate pressing it list for sure. Okay, as long as we're on to Spider-Man here, let's give us some great old Spider-Man classics. So this one's probably due to go back to CGC. This is a copy of The Amazing Spider-Man #375. This is a book I had as a kid that I thought was just the most awesome. Not only am I a kid of the 90s that has foil pattern, and if it's shiny, you know it's going to be valuable. You just know as a kid when it's shiny, it's going to be worth a lot. And so I picked this one up as a kid and was just super thrilled by it. And so, you know, I had the good fortune of being able to go to a comic show and having Mark Bagley and Randy Emberlin sign this one. Mark Bagley was super generous, and if he signed it to you, dedicated to Joe, he didn't really charge for up to like 5 books or something like that. And if you wanted to witness, then all of a sudden he'd charge for it. But if it was just to you as a PC and you just wanted a couple books signed, he was generous enough to do that at no charge. And at the time I had this, that actually would have been a big deal because I was dead broke at the time. So it was a real treat to be able to get the autographs without having a huge fee. And that's why this thing's in a green label. I submitted this well before a PSA, JSA was authenticating for CGC, and they used to just slap a big old green label on there saying, you know, name written on cover in marker, and that's what they did for you know, unwitnessed, unverified signatures. But I can't complain about it. I personally watched both of them sign it, and it's to me, and I couldn't be happier. Now, as long as we're on an Amazing Spider-Man kick, here is a genuinely Amazing Spider-Man. So this is the back of a copy of the official Marvel Index to the Amazing Spider-Man #1. I think a lot of people look at this when it's in a bag and board and go, oh, what do I want that? You want it for the back cover, and it's because it's the original cover that Steve Ditko drew. Now, of course, Stan Lee bumped that cover for what now is probably, you know, the top 2, if not top 3, most iconic comic book covers of all time, right up there with Batman #1 and Action Comics #1, that being the, you know, published cover of The Amazing Fantasy 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man. And so I think that it's just amazing to get the cover Stan Lee rejected, starting the initial riff with Steve Ditko, signed by Stan Lee. And so I was able to pick this one out. And thankfully it came again at a hefty bargain, because again the cover here says 9.6, not 9.8, but you need a magnifying glass to find the 2 spine ticks on this thing. And honestly, for a Stan Lee autographed on a Amazing Fantasy 15 cover, by the way, they did publish this as like a 1 in 1,000 cover of a different one, and I think the coloring on that one, it's like all yellow and orange, and it's totally ugly. The back of this dollar book totally looks way better, and I think does a better justice to the art than that one. So anyway, that one is a truly amazing Stan Lee cover, or Stan Lee autograph, which I'm super happy about. And did I tell you I'm a kid of the 90s? Because that means there's symbiotes everywhere, right? And so these are pretty awesome. This is a 9.6 newsstand copy of The Amazing Spider-Man 252, the AF-15 homage rebranding Spider-Man in the black symbiote suit. with the matching Secret Wars 8 number cover. This one was awesome because I got a really generous offer from a client on it, and I couldn't pass that up. And so thank you to that client for helping a guy out for a PC book. You might remember me unboxing this. This is an unused cover to the Rare Marvel Collectible Classics reprinting of the Amazing Spider-Man 300. And you might care, Joe, what do you mean? You got a unused cover? Who cares? It's shiny. I already went over that it's shiny, and that means it's worth a lot. And who doesn't love a good, old, shiny 90s comic book? So that's right there. This one I was able to pick up from Nostalgia Zone. Again, one of my favorite comic honey holes in Minneapolis. So if you haven't checked out their page, make sure you do so. And if you're shopping around and think the prices are outrageous, make sure you get a membership so that you get your points, because it's 10% off just for signing up for the membership. It's also 10% back in points, which means it's really like 20% off, and then they usually discount the price off of that. And so sticker price is not what you pay at Nostalgia Zone if you're careful. So go check them out. They're also on Facebook and Instagram. Usually they drop new comics on like Tuesday nights, maybe. You'd have to check. It bounces around a little bit, but it's shiny Amazing Spider-Man 300 on the back and Amazing Spider-Man 301 on Amazing Spider-Man 301 on the back, Amazing Spider-Man 300 on the cover. And yeah, there's no comic book in here, but this unused cover is mint. It doesn't even have staple holes. And again, it's shiny. It's from the 90s. It's got to be worth a lot. All right, last one here, of course. No collection would be complete without a copy of Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man #1. I do have a 9/8 newsstand copy of that, but it hasn't really made the display, mostly because I bumped it for this copy of Amazing Spider-Man 13, which I actually think is the cooler cover in the symbiote costume. Again, I was able to pick up a 9/8 with the matching Secret Wars 8 logo. And again, I don't usually jump on these, but when they match the comic book or are very close to, then I get excited. Some of them look really stupid. This one I could not love more. So that's it for my Amazing Spider-Mans. I still got another stack of Marvels here, but I'm going to hold the truly exceptional comics for the very end. And we're going to jump down a series of alternate publisher comic books. Now, I have two Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle only comic books here, one of which is a 9/8 copy of the very rare Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Storm Drain Savers, which was originally published in 1990 by Mirage Comics as an ash can for the Santa Monica Bay Restoration Project. And it is literally like 4 sheets of very small paper. And I saw this and never thought I would actually own a copy, not to mention a 9/8 copy. So this for a while was one of these books I was chasing for a very long time. I was never able to locate. And then it popped up and I nabbed it instantly. So I can't fault it to that. The other one here is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures #72. It's a very rare comic at the end of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Adventures run. It is very hard to find in any grade, not to mention high grade, and it is exceptionally rare in 9.8 grade. And so I was able to pick this one up at an auction for what I thought was actually a steal raw. And when I submitted it, I was kind of hoping for a 9.6, but can't complain with a 9.4 for the price I paid for it. And I really love the cover, because for those of you that played the video game in the Scroll Arcade version, not the Nintendo one, oh, I hated the Nintendo one, but the Scroll Arcade was money. And you know, there's fire across the whole first level of that on the bottom. And this just reminds me of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game, in addition to being a really sweet cover. And so I just have nostalgia, gooey for that one. All right, and if you're a longtime listener to the channel, it's no secret to you that I am a massive Usagi Yojimbo fan. You know, over the 40 plus years now of Usagi Yojimbo, it's not always been the greatest stories, but there are some genuine gems in there. And the one thing I really love about Stan Sakai is the story is always followable, coherent. You know, like I said, over 40 years, there's a little bit of redundancy in some of the plot lines, but who can fault anybody for that? It's always enjoyable to read, even if it is slightly predictable, and the artwork is typically very well done. If you are into vintage Usagi Yojimbo, I really recommend anybody to go back to Albedo 2 and those early years, pick them up in a trade paperback. I mean, there's just so much detail in the artwork, and there's little sound effects everywhere that just, you know, really bring you home, and the writing, I think, is just amazing. And so I'm a big Stan Sakai fan. So this is the issue #1 from the IDW reprint a few years ago. Now, he's since left IDW and he's back at Dark Horse, but I love the cherry blossoms and the samurai armor, and so that one was a really great one to pick up. This is one of my all-time favorites here. Issue 134, you know, Usagi here just always gets rained on in some of the stories, and in this one, you know, he just seems completely miserable with the rain pouring on down, but that little frog or toad is so excited to hang out. And I really just love the artwork, the contrast between the purple kind of yellowish slate in the background with the shaded and dull Usagi with a very bright and vibrant toad kind of in the front. I really appreciate that. The coloring. This one is from the original Dragon Bellow Conspiracy series, which is one of the big story arcs from the original Usagi Yojimbo. This is from issue number 13 from 1988. And not only that, it kind of reminds me of the Dragon Ball Z Dragon a little bit, but the real story here is that it's from the Dragon Bellow Conspiracy, which I thought was a really great story arc and ties together a lot of the characters from their earliest runs. Here we have Usagi Yojimbo number 7. This one is again from the first original Fantagraphics self-titled run, and this is the first full appearance of Spot, who's a character that plays kind of a pivotal role in some of the initial stories here. It's the little green lizard, and Spot was, you know, somebody who's a really big pet lover, and, you know, we love our dogs. Having Usagi with a pet just really made me smile, and so I really love the character Spot. Next on up here is Usagi Yojimbo number 93. This is the Tea Ceremony issue. This one was reprinted recently for a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, and this one features Tome, who's one of the main characters, and they participate in a tea ceremony, and it's just beautiful. It kind of reminds me of the Silent Interlude, the G.I. Joe story, where, you know, there aren't a whole lot of words in it, but it's clearly telling a story the whole time, and it's just a really beautiful cover, and yeah, it's really awesome. All right, this one here you've seen on the channel multiple times because I got a whole stack of this when it came out. This is a relatively recent Usagi Yojimbo Ice and Snow. Jay is the kind of evil-looking character there. He's Usagi Yojimbo's kind of arch nemesis or main villainous bad guy. And what's really special about this one is it's an homage cover that Stan did to really his own sake, because it mimics the Albedo 2 first appearance of Usagi Yojimbo, and it's just really well done, and I couldn't be more thrilled with that. And the last one up here is Usagi Yojimbo number 18 in 9.8. Last time I checked on the CGC census, this is the world's only copy of a 9.8 Usagi Yojimbo number 18. Part of the reason for that is you can see that foiling in there where you get Usagi's family crest. And that's going to show any damage, and the black covers, any true collector knows that those black covers are just notoriously you know, difficult to get in very high grade, and it's not one that, you know, was particularly well preserved throughout the decades, I would say, in most collectors' PCs. And so as of right now, it was the only 9.8 copy. And then finishing out the Usagi Yojimbo run here is a relatively recent Usagi Yojimbo Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle crossover for the Saturday Morning Cartoons cover. This is the rare, I think, 1 in 50 cover that Stan Sakai did for the series, and I just couldn't resist picking it up since it has both the Ninja Turtles and Usagi Yojimbo, and it's a Stan Sakai cover, and so I sprung for that. So I guess there's a few instances here where I paid a premium for a modern variant cover, and that would be one of them. All right, last on up here for Usagi Yojimbo, before we get to the truly excellent comic books, is a series of comics that I'm genuinely appreciative to have in the PC. So this one here is a copy of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 65. It was a blank sketch cover, and who really cares what issue it is, because on the cover is original art from Kevin Eastman depicting Usagi Yojimbo, as well as a Kevin Eastman autograph up there. And so I was able to pick this one up from Elite Comics on Instagram, so thank you to Ali and the Elite Comics team. This one is genuinely a treat to have Kevin Eastman, the co-creator of the Ninja Turtles, depict Usagi Yojimbo, who of course is one of the close crossover characters going all the way back to the 1980s cartoon. And what I think is a truly awesome, very clearly Kevin Eastman-esque piece of artwork, and so I could not be more thrilled to have that one on the PC. Now, having had Kevin Eastman do an Usagi Yojimbo, I of course had to figure out how to get Stan Sakai to do a Leonardo to complement it. And unfortunately, Stan doesn't make too many comic appearances in the Midwest, and I don't blame him for that. It's a long flight from the West Coast to Indianapolis. So I had to recruit help, and I'm very grateful that one of my longer time pressing clients was able to capture this at Emerald City Comic Con, and I was able to arrange, I sent him pictures of this one and said have him do a Leo in exactly the same fashion, and he was able to capture that. And not only that, we got Julie Sakai, who's responsible for the Chibi Usagis, to do the coloring there on Usagi Yojimbo. Julie does some really incredible little watercolors for a lot of people, and so if you're at a convention, you can totally walk up and request those from Julie as well. And so these two, I think, are a truly unmatched, incredibly unique pair of comic books to have Stan Sakai do the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and have Kevin Eastman do Usagi Yojimbo. It's just really exceptional. So I couldn't be more thrilled with those two. Those are for sure going to be two long-time, very awesome holds. All right, now for something exceptional here. This is going to be another one of these books that did not hit the 9.8. This was a Dynamic Forces autographed copy of Magneto Rex #1, and this one happened to be signed by Sir Ian McKellen. And so Ian McKellen, of course, was the Magneto in the original 2000s run of X-Men movies, which, along with the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, really kind of launched, I would say, comic books onto the big screen. And Ian McKellen's role in that was incredible. But of course, Ian McKellen has done all kinds of genuinely amazing roles throughout the cinematic universe, including being Gandalf. And so having the autograph from Sir Ian McKellen was totally awesome. And I, of course, had to go have this autographed by Chris Claremont as well. And when I showed up, you know, I had the window bag cut and everything, and I said, you know, Mr. Claremont, just please be careful when you sign not to go over the Ian McKellen. And he just threw his hands up and said, Ian McKellen, I bleeply love Ian McKellen, and went on a very long you know, discussion about the interactions he's had with Ian McKellen. And so he actually signed it. Chris Claremont is his biggest fan, you know, right above the Ian McKellen. And so that one I think is unique and very special to me, not only for the story of it and the interaction, which is unique, but also being able to get a little bit of those kind of unusual remarks on stuff. All right, and the books that'll be featured kind of up there center place for a long haul are these four. Now, if you're a longtime viewer of the channel, you might remember when I was able to unbox these, but these are all four connecting covers from Jim Lee's X-Men #1 reboot in the 1990s. All four copies are 9.8 signature series with the matching gold label. And so I was able to get Chris Claremont, amazingly, at a different convention. So the first Chris Claremont signing was at C2E2, and this one was the following year or the year after at South Carolina at HeroCon. Yep, HeroCon, definitely it. And I was able to get a really awesome snikt there, ripping right through the X-Men logo, along with Chris Claremont. And so that one, I mean, this, I had toys with that cover on it. I mean, I had a couple of copies of this thing. For a while there, even my wife knows if I walk into a comic store and find this in the dollar bucket, like I'm walking home with it, just because I can't. And I know that the world has enough copies because these are the most printed comic books of all time. But there's just something about this cover that makes me keep buying it, even though I definitely don't need to. All right, the remainder of these are signed not only by some of the comic book creators, but also by the voice actors from the original animated series. And so the first one up here is signed by Cal Dodd, who did Wolverine, and he signed it, I go where I want to go. And so if you're doing signature series books, what I would encourage you to do is, you know, think about where you want people to sign, what color you want them to sign it, and if there's a particular quote you want added to it. And so before I went to the event where all of the voice actors were going to be, I rewatched some of the key episodes of the original animated series and jotted down some key quotes. And so this is from the end of episode 1. You know, Wolverine is stinging from the loss of Morph, and he really is about to cut into Cyclops. And Cal Dodd was totally awesome and remembered that and gave me the whole setup and then actually delivered the line for me as a voice actor. And so that, of course, made me like all giggly inside because, you know, I remember it from the earlier in my childhood. All right, next down up here is Lorraine Zahn, who is the voice actor for Rogue, along with Chris Potter, who is the voice actor for Gambit. And so I got Rogue to sign it, you know, lighten up on the speeches, sugar, which of course is one of the you know, opening lines she has when Storm is about ready to rip into the Sentinel within, you know, the opening minutes of the animated series. And I've got Gambit there to be signed with style, petite with style. And that's, of course, after Jubilee asks him, you know, how did you do that? And he's like refuses to say it's just my mutant powers. He says it's with style, petite. All right, next on up here, this one is a splattering. This is one of the few instances where I've massacred the art on the comic book cover with signature after signature after signature. But there's Chris Claremont, Stan Lee, Jim Lee, the voice actor for Beast, who is George Boozma, and then we have the voice actor for Jean Grey, and who's Catherine Disher, and then the voice actor for Storm. And so all of those are signed there, who's Allison Seeley Smith. I couldn't remember, sorry. And I had all of the quotes picked out. So Beast signed it, disconcerting yet provocative. We have Jean say you did what you had to do, kind of consoling Cyclops after Wolverine storms out, and he's worrying about being a team. And Storm, of course, says people fear what they do not understand, which, of course, as a quote of the X-Men, it kind of really summarizes the entire plot line of the whole series. And so these 4 books right here, I would say are going to be cherished for a very long time, and just outrageously excited to have all of them. And you know, they really complete a childhood dream right there. And so with that, I think that's everything that's going to be displayed here in the comic book layer. And so thank you for sticking with me for the full rant here as I delivered all of these. And again, I couldn't be more excited. And thank you all for the patronage, the viewership, the support for Top Comics Pressing. Keep on clicking what you like, and feel free again to reach out on Facebook, Instagram, email me at topcomicspressing.com. And most importantly, you know, stay tuned for another video from Top Comics Pressing. Like, subscribe, follow. Don't forget to subscribe. It's right